Welcome to another episode of These Nuts Garage. Well, today we are working on this 2014 Ford Fusion Titanium. And what I got to do is take this whole front end off to replace a headlight. I looked at it, you can't get in behind it, you can't take that light out without removing this whole thing. So since I got to do all that, I bought all new headlights for the front of it and marker lights, so that way I'm done with it. Hopefully I don't have to take this thing apart for another 3 years. So let me flip this camera around and I'll kind of show you what we're going to do. Alrighty, so like I said, you cannot take this big headlight out of this car, and you can't get your hand down in here to take those bulbs out, because there's one here, there's one in here, because of this bracket here, structure part of the car. So we're just going to take it all apart. You can see we have some retaining clips here, you have some here, you got some screws here, 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 right here, and then here's some more retaining clips or whatever. So I'm gonna take this off first. I know you have to get underneath the car, take some of the splash shield off. You have to get up underneath the front wheels, and which that's a very tight space. And take this inner fender liner down so you can undo the bolts that hold this bracket together. So I'm gonna get started on that, and I do need to clean this engine, so I may do that after the fact, but I just want to get all these headlights replaced and I'll be done with it. Got all the bolts at the top up here. These were a T25, and these were just the little plastic clips that are holding it down. So this top part is loose. So now I'm gonna start working on probably the splash shield down here and get that off. That'll be the next step. Now I'm up under the car here, so looks like we have little bolt here, and we have several across the front of it. We also have some, looks like these are T25s right here as well. We also have some back here, look like the same thing. We have three, a total of 3 across this part back here. And here's the splash shield. We have something over here. I think these are some sort of little retaining clips that'll just pop out. And then, like I said, we'll get all this taken apart, and then we'll jump up in the fender well. Alrighty, these little Torx bits here, bolts. These are a T27 end. These are not Phillips, so you can't use a Phillips screwdriver or a regular screwdriver, but you can go to pretty much anywhere that sells tools and get a T27 Torx bit. I call it a screwdriver, but it's a T27 Torx. So now I've got all the bolts and little plastic retaining clips done from underneath that front bumper cover. There's some little bits. Right here's one. I don't know if you can see that in there. Well, anyway, there's a little plastic screw clip there. I guess I don't know the technical name of it, but it just pops out. That was it right there. So basically that just pops in, pops out. What I gotta do is pull it back so that I can get in here and get this inner fender well down so I can undo this bracket. You can see my fingers on it. What it does is it connects the fender to the front of the bumper. So being that this tire is kind of in the way, I'm hoping that I don't have to remove this tire. So I'm gonna, once I get this down, I will come back and show you what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I'm jumping back in here real quick, trying to get this inner fender down so I can get this front bumper off. And there is a bracket right here, like I said. And as I pull this apart, you can maybe kind of see there's a hole. There's another one, and then down here at the bottom, there's 3 of these little clips that go in here before you ever get up to here. And then I have 2 getting back down here on the ground. I can get it to show. But anyway, there's 2 bolts. One's over here and one's over here. I gotta zip out, maybe I can pull that down. All right, so here you can see this plastic bracket here, and there's very hard to get to with this tire on the car. If I had a professional shop, I had a lift, I think I just removed these 2 front tires. But peeling this inner fender back, there's 2 8mm bolts that come from this plastic bracket up through the fender and screw into it. You can't hardly see them with this camera, but what I can do is show you them from underneath so you see those 2 bolts. That's what you're trying to get to loosen up just a little bit so that this fender will pop out from in here. So now what I'm going to do is, you can see in here, you can see there's the fog lamp. And we got to disconnect all these plugs before we completely disassemble this. So there's a plug that goes back in here. Because when we take this off, that fog lamp bracket, some of this wiring harness is going to go with this front bumper cover. So I'm going to disconnect those and get the other side undone, and then we'll slip this cover off. So I've jumped in here. You have a plug there that I unplugged. I was plugged into that. This plug down here, this harness, plugs into that harness. So now as I move over to the other side, pretty much the only thing holding this bumper on is 2 little bolts in there. So as I undo this bolt, since it's just me, and I pull that apart, there's a chance that this whole front bumper could come slipping off and crash onto the floor and do some damage to your front bumper, scuff up your paint. This car is dirty and it's got a lot of bugs on the front of it, but the front end of it's not tore up. So what I've done is I've just gone back in here, very top center. I've just put in a little bolt, just kind of put it in just a little bit. That way, when I get this side over here broke loose, I don't have to worry about this front end crashing on the floor. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get me an old blanket, lay on the floor somewhere, so that way when I take this off, I'm not just laying it on the ground or the concrete, anything that might scratch it up. So off to the other side I go to get this finished up. Okay, I got this side broke loose. These are a real pain in the neck. Like I said, if I had a shop, I would probably, with a lift, I'd jack this car up, take the front tires off, pull down most of this inner fender so I can get my hand up in here. This side's a little harder because you have that. You don't have that extra space behind this bracket to really get your hand up there and move around. So, like I said, there's a bolt here and a bolt here that you loosen from the top side. And then there's also a little plastic clip right here that comes down and basically goes through this hole as it this is in here, it passes through and it locks it in there. See, this basically, you can just twist this with your finger. This one was in there pretty good, so I had to get my little removing tool there in there and pry up on it, and it finally snapped loose. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the camera over here and pop this front end off. And there's my lower splash shield, there's the top. And then I have a little throw blanket that, if you're like us, you probably got a million throw blankets around your house. And we took a bunch of them and was gonna throw them away, and I was like, hey, I'll keep those. Make good things to lay on when you're working under a car or trying to work on something you don't want to get it dirty. And just gonna put this on there, and when I get done with them, I'll wash them and bring them back out here just to keep reusing. So I'm gonna set this camera over here and we'll slip this off. I imagine there's a couple of more. I probably got some lights to disconnect back here. Looks like they're running up towards the front, so I'm gonna get up underneath there and unplug those and get this off. All right, so here's the back side of it. These are our fog lamp, pretty much bulb right here, and this is the whole assembly. There's two wires to unplug over here on the passenger side. Basically, this is one towards the top. It's kind of hard to get in there because this, new cars are all crammed up. You just push down right there, it slips out. Same way here on the back of this one. Just push down on the very back and it'll slide out. Of course, that was the big one. Same thing. Push down on that little tab right there. If you just push down, it'll slip out. Same way on that one. Just push down on that tab on the back, push down, and it'll slip out. One thing about this car is that your fog lamps and your low beams use the same bulb, which our low beam is out, so I'm having to replace these headlights because we have one low beam out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the low beam that's actually still working on the passenger side, and I'm going to take it and put it up so that way if I ever have a fog lamp or something goes out, which we never hardly use those fog lamps, driving lamps, I'll have a fresh bulb that I can put in it. Even though it is used, we hardly ever use the fog lamp, so it's just a way of saving a little bit of money. These bulbs are $24 for a pack, so they're like $12 a piece. So put it up, and if you have another bulb goes out, like I said, when the fog lamps goes out, you have a quick bulb that you already used and didn't have to pay a lot for it. So I'm going to take these out. So basically, the only thing up top is we have this bolt. We have this bolt, and it'll break this light loose. But I think so we have a wiring harness that's running over here. Plugs in here, so we'll unplug that. Just push down on that tab. And you have to push down and wiggle it, and then we'll pop this out. And then I think we have, I don't know what we have here, if these two bolts have to come out, but we will undo them and see. So I'm gonna get started on this. That's that side. Probably this side's identical somewhat to it. I have two bolts here. Trying to find the wiring harness like that was on the other side. I have a bolt there and bolt there. And I should be wearing gloves, but usually in that tight spot, I don't know, those little plastic gloves seem to tear. And big thick gloves, you can't get your hand in there with them. So for right now, I'm just going gloveless. But if you want to be safe, not scuff up your hands, get you some gloves. headlights out. Basically, like I said, there was a little bolt there, a little bolt here. There's also this little funny bracket. And basically it goes in here like this. And then this part screws into the headlight. So basically there's two bolts here. Just take those out, undo this little bolt, and then you can just set this to the side. If not, you're gonna sit there and fight with it for something you don't have to. When I pulled this headlight out, there was just this one plug. Make sure you press the back down and pull it out. They always are kind of tight, got a little suction to them. On this side, I had two plugs. This main plug that went into the headlight assembly. And you can see how that bracket's there. I just left it sitting there. But it's one on each side. Then there was a wiring harness that went around through here. There was a little plastic piece that pops in there. And then plugged in right over here where my finger's at. The little harness went there and plugged into there. So I've set my headlights over here. And as we can see, you have that right there is your low beams, I believe. There's your high beams, and up there's a little daylight running lamp, and then you have a turn signal there. I actually didn't get the turn signals for the car, but I did get all these three lights. And basically how you get in there to them is spin it around. And like I'm doing this on this blanket here, so I don't scratch up the lens by putting it on the concrete or whatever. So it looks like to get to your little parking lamp, you just undo this one. Maybe that's the turn signal. But that's the turn signal one. This is going to be your, basically you just push these in. They're just dust covers. And that just pops out, and then you have your low beam light. And then the same thing, here's the high beam. Pop that cover off. And in here you can see you have your high beam and that little daytime running lamp right there, plug. So we're going to take this out, and then we'll take that one out, put that one in, then put this one in last with those two, and then we'll put this one in. You have to be real careful when handling these bulbs, because if you touch the bulb with your finger, you get your oil from your finger or sweat, being that it's hot out here today. And you install that, it's going to burn out right after you put it in and turn it on. So be real careful with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these headlight assemblies, I'm going to sit them on my desk over here. That way when I'm working on them, I can show you what I'm doing and I'm not being over on the ground. So I'll be right back. All right, so now I got my headlight on another throw blanket. And as you can see in here, we're going to be pulling this bulb out, this one. And then there's the two dust covers that I popped off. So this car, for a low beam, this 2014 Ford Fusion Titanium, uses a H11 Sylvania headlight. These lights at Walmart are about $23, $24. For the high beams, it's a H7 Sylvania. Same price, about $24 for the two. And then these are $5.67 a piece, I think. And these are those running lamps that I told you were in there, and they're basically an H3. There's one thing about headlights that most people may not know. These are probably, out of the Sylvania, these are the lowest costing headlight, and they also are probably the dimmest headlights that are out there as far as the brands that are offered for this car. Up from here, from these headlights, you go to a mid-grade headlight, and then even higher grade headlight. And every time you step up, I think the next step up, you get a really bright white. And then after that, they're really bright. But one thing about a light bulb is if you want your lights to last a long time, don't go out and buy the brightest headlight that you can get. You're going to get about half the life of these. you're wasting your money. Those bulbs are probably $40-something a set. Unless you like them bright and you want to tear into this car all the time replacing these bulbs, I don't recommend spending a ton of money on these lights, because these are going to last longer than the other ones. So just because the light's bright, it's going to burn out about half the time. The brighter the light, the faster it burns out. So I'm going to get into this, and like I said, I'm going to replace this one first because it is the low beam, and it's pretty simple. You just unplug it, twist it, and it pops out. So let me turn this camera around and I'll get to work on it right there. Get a little screwdriver. You're just basically going to stick in there and push up, and then push back on this plug. Here's the plug. So basically all I did was I stuck, you'll see this little tab, I guess here, there's a little tab. I just stuck my screwdriver in here and pressed up, and as I'm pressing up, I'm pulling back. I'm not trying to push back with my screwdriver, I'm pulling back with my fingers and just pressing up on this tab. This tab is different than the other ones on the car that we've been messing with so far. Those you push down in the back. Well, this one you can push it down in the back too, so even then you can push this one down in the back and it'll slide out. The only reason I didn't push it down in the back is because I couldn't get to it. It's way back in there. So basically what I did is I just put my screwdriver in there and lift it up on the tab, pull back. So with that being done, this is the passenger side. So this bulb should be good. So I don't want to touch any of this with my finger. I don't know if you can see any of that, but it is starting to get some white around the bottom, so it's meeting its end of its life. So I'm going to take this, set this to the side, this bulb, so it doesn't get any, actually I'm going to do this, get even better. I always keep around here in my garage Ziploc bags. So basically I'm just going to open this up, throw it in this Ziploc bag, and hold on to it. Stick it up here out of the way for now. Here's our new pack of 2. Like I said, these are H11s. I'm gonna try to be careful and get these out of there. Yeah, you can just tear at the bottom of the package up. I'm just gonna try to open it up, get my arm out of the way, where the bulbs are down inside this package like this, and I'm just gonna sit it to the side. We do not want to get any sweat, touch any of that new bulb. So basically you can see it's got these little tabs in there. Inside here you can see those 3 little tabs. You're basically gonna put it in there, line those tabs up. Once you line them up, the bulb will pop in, and then turn it clockwise until you hear it click in. Once it's clicked in, you're good. We're basically gonna, like I said, this is a kind of a tight spot. May take you a second to get this plug lined up. I'm gonna turn this around so I can see it. And since all these plugs are designed to be waterproof, they're kind of snug when you're trying to put them on. But now that one's in there, kind of push back on it. Now you see it's all plugged up. So this next one is the one that has our high beam and our running lamp. There's also a little metal clip in here that you have to, I'm gonna unplug it. I'll try to get over to this. So you'll see this little plug, and basically you can just put your fingers on it and wiggle it like a loose tooth, and then basically you're gonna have this little plug, it pops off. So now in here, right, you can see this, there's a little
metal clip. And at the top, there's a little hook. Trying to make sure you can see this over here. At the top, there's a little hook. So take your small screwdriver, push that little clip over. When you do, that little metal, I guess it's a clip, falls down. But the thing about it is when it's down, it's still in the way. So if you go at the bottom, down here at the, get that plug out of my way. The bottom, you can just squeeze this little metal wire clip and it'll pop right out of there. And just move it out of the way. And then basically our high beam light will come out. Now we didn't have any problem with this high beam bulb. So what I'm gonna do is the same thing I did with my low beam one. Since these are good, I'm gonna keep them. Because if I have one high beam go out later on, and I don't wanna go out and spend $70 on bulbs, I can pull this one side out, just replace that one bulb. And what I've essentially done is I've replaced the high beam with a used bulb, which will match if you was to get outside your car, turn your high beams on. Since both bulbs have been used on each side, they'll be about the same brightness. As the bulb burns long, it'll get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. So I'm just keeping those in case I ever need to replace them. I'll have a set. So now that we've got this bulb out, I want to get in here and get this other little bulb out. It's, like I said, it is a pain to see, but it's like I said, way down in here. So anyway, I'm gonna pull that out, and I basically think it's you squeeze it and it should slip out. So there's that bulb. And it looks like actually the bulb that I have here is the incorrect bulb. So this actually may be a turn signal bulb. Well, we're gonna find out. Oh. So this H3 is incorrect for this model car. Basically it just, and these aren't so it's sensitive. As far as the lights go, this is basically a cheap bulb. I actually think I have some of these, and I'm gonna go check and see if I have some of these out in my electrical box. I did have some of these little bulbs. These are probably 50-cent bulbs out there in a kit that I have that I keep a lot of older style light bulbs in. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace this with a new one and wipe it off. Like I said, these aren't so sensitive to your fingers as the other ones, but I still wiped it off after I plugged it in. I will take these back and get my money back on these. So those are incorrect. So now that I have my low beam in, I have my, I guess that's kind of like a daytime running lamp or something. And then now I'm gonna put in the high beam, which is H7. We're gonna be careful opening them up, doing it the same way as we did our other ones, just trying to take the cardboard off and not actually touch the bulbs and leave them in the plastic part of the package. I'm gonna take this, because basically all I'm gonna do is put this bulb back in here and put this little metal clip back on. But what I wanna do is, since these bulbs just kind of fit in there, having it at an angle like this, the bulb's not going to sit even. So while I'm working on it, I'm just going to turn this light up, so that way when I drop this bulb in there, it is facing straight down. Because you can see that's just flat. So I'm going to drop that down in there, and that'll And this bulb is kind of, it has a little, yeah, you can't see it, but once I get it, this clip in it, I'll show it to you. Takes just a second to get this thing in here. There it goes. Well, now I've got that back in there, and as I was saying, this bulb has kind of got this flat edge on the top with that notch in it. That notch goes up here. So it's always circle around here, flat, and then that little notch goes in there. So the bulb has to go in one particular way, and all we're gonna do is just plug that light back in, that plug back in there. Make sure it's in there good. That one's in there good. So now we have new low beam, new high beam, and I think that's a daytime running lamp. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put the dust covers on it, and then they just basically pop on. No biggie. You'll see how that goes on the inside, and then this goes on the outside. So it's not a big deal to pop on there. So when I get these on, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side, and then I'll come back and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do since I've already got the headlights off, and this will improve your visibility going down the road. So let me get this other side taken care of, and I'll be back. With these headlights, since I've got them out, and you can do this anytime you wash your car, or maybe you're gonna get out there and detail it, but if you take care of your headlights throughout the period that you own your car, you don't have to worry about them turning yellow or glazing over or having to go to somewhere to have your headlights fixed. Several different ways of having some headlights fixed. You can sand them down with like 1500 grit paper, sandpaper, and actually clear coat over them. I've seen that done. 1500, 1800 grit, 2000 grit, 2500 grit sandpaper, and then they buff them out like you do a paint job to bring them back. But if you don't have that equipment and you're not qualified to do it, well, it's gonna cost you some money to have it done. Well, this is about a $7 fix, and probably one bottle will last you the life of your car. Now I use mine on the headlights and the tail lights. Tail lights usually don't get affected as much because they're not taking the wind as you're driving down the road, basically being sand blasted and the debris from the road and the wind and the rain hitting it directly. So they usually get wore out fairly easily, especially with the new headlights. They're plastic. So what I use is this here Meguiar's Plastic X. You can buy this at Walmart. It's about $7 for this bottle. Very easy to do. You can use it when it's on your car, put it on your headlights. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's actually a plastic polish and cleaner. So all you have to do is get you some terry cloths. Any kind of rag will honestly do. What you do is shake it up. I'm about out of this bottle. Let me see if I have some more. All right, so I'm back. So here's a new bottle. Shake it up real good. And basically you're just gonna put about that much on your rag. And anywhere it's clear, just kind of dab it, you just kind of dab it on like that. And you just rub it in. Just put some elbow grease into it. I mean, and with this, there's nothing that it's gonna hurt. Even if it's on your car, you can just really work that in there. And you're just back and forth. Like there's like a line here. You can just really work around those lines all the way to the end. Just really hold on to it. You don't have to have a sander or buffer or any of that. And just when you're done, just I'm gonna rub it a little more. Just put some more elbow grease in it. I mean, even now you can see that it's starting to. And then usually I have a second rag that's just dry. All I'm gonna do is just kind of go over and buff that. And you just buff it out. And like I said, you can do this every time you wash your car. There's some bug there. Get all that off. If you do this throughout the life of your car that you own it, and probably like I said, if you did this once a month, and maybe in the winter months, if it's too cold, you don't have a garage, you don't wash your car, it'll probably be fine till summer. But if you do this like here just about once a month on your headlights and tail lights, turn signals, they're gonna stay looking like that right there. And I probably honestly do this, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year. So I don't even do it as much as I think I should do it. But this car is a 14, sold in 2018. It's almost 4 or 5 years old. And these headlights look brand new. So that's one thing you can do. This Meguiar's Plastic X, sold at Walmart, probably Target, AutoZone, everywhere. Easy, cheap fix for even headlights that are yellowed already. If they're yellow, just buy some of this before you pay somebody a ton of money, and just work that in there. And maybe do it 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Just do it 3 or 4 times in a, every week, and until you can try to get that work back out. And that's what you can do. And this is going to help you have brighter lights going down the road, especially because the lens is clear. It's not all hazed up. So that's one thing you can do. Now I'm gonna get back to putting this car back together, and I'm gonna do the other lens, and I'm gonna put this thing back together because I have another one to work on. So now with these headlights, since I've got them out, and you can do this anytime you wash your car, or maybe you're gonna get out there and detail it, but if you take care of your headlights throughout the period that you own your car, you don't have to worry about them turning yellow or glazing over or having to go to somewhere to have your headlights fixed. Several different ways of having some headlights fixed. You can sand them down with like 1500 grit paper, sandpaper, and actually clear coat over them. I've seen that done. 1500, 1800 grit, 2000 grit, 2500 grit sandpaper, and then they buff them out like you do a paint job to bring them back. But if you don't have that equipment and you're not qualified to do it, well, it's gonna cost you some money to have it done. Well, this is about a $7 fix, and probably one bottle will last you the life of your car. Now I use mine on the headlights and the tail lights. Tail lights usually don't get affected as much because they're not taking the wind as you're driving down the road, basically being sandblasted and the debris from the road and the wind and the rain hitting it directly. So they usually get wore out fairly easily, especially with the new headlights, they're plastic. So what I use is this here Meguiar's Plastic X. You can buy this at Walmart. It's about $7 for this bottle. very easy to do. You can use it when it's on your car, put it on your headlights. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's actually a plastic polish and cleaner. So all you have to do is get you some terry cloths. Any kind of rag will honestly do. What you do is shake it up. I'm about out of this bottle. Let me see if I have some more. All right, so I'm back. So here's a new bottle. Shake it up real good. And basically, you're just gonna put about that much on your rag. And anywhere it's clear, just kind of dab it, you just kind of dab it on like that. And you just rub it in. Just put some elbow grease into it. I mean, and with this, there's nothing that it's gonna hurt. Even if it's on your car, you can just really work that in there. And you're just back and forth. Like there's a line here. You can just really work around those lines all the way to the end. Just really hold on to it. You don't have to have a sander or buffer or any of that. And just when you're done, just I'm gonna rub it a little more. Just put some elbow grease in it. And even now you can see that it's starting to. And then usually I have a second rag that's just dry. All I'm gonna do is just kind of go over and buff that. And just buff it out. And like I said, you can do this every time you wash your car. There's some bug there. Get all that off. If you do this throughout the life of your car that you own it, and probably like I said, if you did this once a month, and maybe in the winter months, if it's too cold, you don't have a garage, you don't wash your car, it'll probably be fine till summer. But if you do this like here just about once a month on your headlights and tail lights, turn signals, they're gonna stay looking like that right there. And I probably honestly do this, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year. So I don't even do it as much as I think I should do it. But this car is a 14, sold in 2018. It's almost 4 or 5 years old. And these headlights are brand new. So that's one thing you can do. This McGuire's Plastic X, sold at Walmart, probably Target, AutoZone, everywhere. Easy, cheap fix for even headlights that are yellowed already. If they're yellow, just buy some of this before you pay somebody a ton of money, and just work that in there. And maybe do it 2 or 3 weeks in a row. Just do it 3 or 4 times in a, every week, and until you can try to get that work back out. And that's what you can do, and this is going to help you have brighter lights going down the road, especially because the lens is clear. It's not all hazed up. So that's one thing you can do. Now I'm going to get back to putting this car back together, and I'm going to do the other lens, and I'm going to put this thing back together because I have another one to work on. So let's get started on it. As y'all seen in my time-lapse video, I was putting these headlights back in on both sides, and the inspector come out and told me how they looked so clean, and I was telling her about how I buffed them out. So a couple of things real quick before I start putting back on my bumper cover. I want to
find out where all my plugs are going to go, refresh my memory. So on this side, I have a plug here that's going to, a fog lamp assembly, all those wires around that fog lamp assembly will plug into right there. And I also have another one down here. So I know there's two on this side, and there's also two on the passenger side. I just want to refresh myself with this so that way when I start putting it back together, I don't forget something. So I have another plug here on the passenger side, and then there's one right there. Basically, you can see it's off in there. It's pretty well hid. I knew there were two over here, but I definitely wanted to get over here and check that out before I forgot to plug it up and had all that back together and something didn't work right. And then, like I said, there's a bolt here and a bolt here, and there's a little plastic clip that pops in here. But on this bracket, I had backed those bolts off pretty good to get this loose. So what I did is I kind of tightened them up. It's still loose, but the bolts aren't all the way backed out because that's such a tight spot. When I put my hand up in there, I don't want to have to be driving that bolt all the way through it. So I just got everything, a little bit of a gap in there so I can pop that bumper in there and get that back together. So another thing that I'm going to do, like when I took the bumper off, I don't want it to just be hanging. So I'm also going to take the bumper, push it back up here, and put one little bolt in this hole. So that way the bumper don't fall off while I'm trying to, you know, work this side of the panel in or working that other side of the panel in. I don't want this bumper just falling off. So I'm going to put one little bolt. I ain't got to tighten it up all the way, just enough to give me some room to be able to move it around, and it keeps it from falling to the floor. So I want to get started on that. So let's get it. Got these bumper back on here. This side is pretty easy to do because you can kind of pull that inner fender back and get your hand up in here and tighten some of these bolts. And also you can actually lay on the ground and look up through this bumper and see this bolt and that little clip you have to put in there, which is kind of a pain in the neck. And then that you can see this bolt and this clip, and then this one you can get to really easier from the outside through the fender well. I've not put any of these bolts back on yet, but this side is really the pain just because of the windshield washer fluid tank. And I've got it back in there, but if I do this again, I'm gonna pull this car up on the ramps, jack this side up and put it on a jack stand and pull that front tire off and pull this whole inner fender well out of it. It would just be easier. There are some other people doing these videos on YouTube, and they got a garage and a lift, and they got a lot more easier ways to get in there than I do. And like I said, next time that I do this, I'm pulling the car up on ramps, I'm jacking this side up, pulling this tire off, putting it on a jack stand, pulling that tire off, and I'm removing this inner fender well. That way I can access that clip without having to fight for it. So I'm gonna get back to doing what I was doing and wrap this thing up. I still have just this splash guard in the top part to the radiator cover, I guess, whatever it is up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put all that on. And real quick, as you can tell, this car is used, so you can actually see where these washers had lined up before. So when I go to put this back together, I'm actually going to try to realign
these old wear marks or paint or whatever, line all that back up to where it originally was, so that way it's fitting like it was from the factory. But I'm gonna get this back on this and be back. All right, well, I'm done with this job. I replaced the low beam headlight in this 2014 Ford Fusion Titanium, which if you watched the video, you've seen that I replaced all the headlights in the front, low beam, high beam, and the marker lights. And it required me to take the whole front bumper cover off, splash guard, and this upper radiator guard, plastic piece up here. On a scale of 1 to 10, for somebody who is kind of mechanically inclined, this is hard level, probably like a 5. But if you're not mechanically inclined, I don't suggest you take this apart. There's a lot of body panels like over here that with where the fender and the bumper meet, you need to make sure those line back up. They're kind of a tight spot to get to. But with that being said, this was a $12 part that if you carried it to a dealership or a mechanic somewhere, you may pay 3 or 4 hours worth of labor. And I don't know what labor costs are running right now, if they're $45 an hour or $75 an hour, but you're talking potentially, $350, $200 job. And I'm not paying that kind of money for something I can do myself. So this is done. I'm going to back it out, wash it up. But the next video I'm going to be doing probably next week will be on a 2012 Nissan Altima, and which is a splash guard that is cracked and broken. So I'm going to be replacing that, which isn't a very expensive part. Nissan original OEM part is like 99 bucks off eBay. So I bought some little clips for $5, like 500 of them for $5 and free shipping. I don't know how they do that, but anyway, I've got the parts, so I'm going to fix that. And we're going to get back to working on the 78 F350 soon. I've got my floor pan in. I've been debating on paint, how am I going to paint it, which at this point is kind of putting the cart before the horse, but it is about to that point where I'm going to start media blasting it and getting the paint off of it, putting an epoxy primer on it, and trying to get it ready to paint. I want to be able to paint my truck sometime this fall when the temperatures kind of go down a little bit, and I can paint it and put it up in storage. I'm going to be buying a storage building that I can put my parts of my truck into, other than hanging on my wall in here, in which these parts hanging on my wall, other than the radiator support, are all going to find a new home. I'm replacing them with new, but I want to be able to paint my parts and have a place that I can hang them throughout the winter, and then in the spring, then I want to start getting my frame ready to get the cab and the body panels put back on. So that way I can maybe, by next fall, I'll have that truck up and running. So, but I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please like the video, that's very important, because that also, when you like it, that helps the video get higher ratings, and when somebody searches for it, it's in the top part of the feed. So, like I said, this job is done in the books. I hope I don't have to ever do it again, but I can imagine I will. So, do my fingers crossed. So, y'all have a blessed day, and later.